The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from 47 species gathered for what many believed would be humanity's final judgment. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat alone at the defendants' table, her hands folded calmly despite the weight of an entire species resting on her shoulders. Around her, aliens of every imaginable form whispered in languages that sounded like crystalline chimes, grinding stone, and electronic static. High Counselor Vextar, a towering crystalline being whose body refracted light into rainbow patterns, called the session to order. His voice resonated through translation devices, filling the vast chamber with authority that had commanded respect for over 3 millennia. "We gather today to address the crimes of the human species," Vexatar announced, his crystal facets catching the chamber's ambient light. "In the mere 50 years since their admission to the Galactic Council, humans have demonstrated a pattern of behavior that threatens the very foundation of our peaceful civilization." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The Zephyrians, beings of pure energy contained within metallic shells, flickered with approval. The massive Carathians, resembling living mountains of granite, rumbled their consent. Even the delicate ethereals, floating jellyfish-like creatures, pulsed with agreement. Counselor Threska, a serpentine being with scales that shifted color based on emotion, slithered forward to present the evidence. Her scales displayed deep purples and reds, indicating displeasure and anger. "Let us review the human transgressions," she hissed, her forked tongue tasting the air. "First, the incident at the Balerian trade station. When pirates attacked the station, what did the humans do? Did they follow protocol and wait for Council peacekeepers? No. They launched their own rescue mission, violating sovereign space and engaging in unauthorized combat." Ambassador Chen watched silently as holographic displays showed human ships diving into battle, their weapons blazing as they fought to protect innocent civilians. The footage was damning in the eyes of the Council, but Sarah remembered the reports differently. 3,000 lives had been saved that day. "Second," Threska continued, her scales darkening, "the Altarian refugee crisis. When the Altarian sun began to die, the Council approved an orderly evacuation plan spanning 50 years. The humans again ignored protocol. They sent their entire merchant fleet to evacuate the population in just 2 years, disrupting carefully planned resource allocation and immigration quotas." More holographic evidence appeared, showing massive human cargo ships packed with grateful Altarian families. The images showed overcrowded conditions, humans giving up their own sleeping quarters to accommodate more refugees. What the Council saw as chaos, Sarah saw as compassion. Third, the Vorthan plague outbreak. When this deadly disease struck the outer colonies, the Council established a quarantine zone to prevent spread. Once again, humans violated our directives. They sent medical teams directly into the quarantine zone, risking galactic contamination to treat the infected. The evidence continued to mount, humans breaking blockades to deliver food to starving populations. Human doctors working in dangerous war zones without authorization. Human engineers fixing critical infrastructure on worlds the Council had deemed too risky to help. Each act of defiance was meticulously documented, each violation of galactic law clearly established. Vextar's light patterns shifted to judicial gold as he prepared to render judgment. "Ambassador Chen, you have heard the evidence. Your species has repeatedly demonstrated an inability to follow Council directives, showing reckless disregard for established protocols. Humanity's actions, while perhaps well-intentioned, have created chaos and precedent that threatens our orderly civilization." Sarah stood slowly, feeling the weight of billions of eyes upon her. In the gallery, she could see the human delegation, their faces tight with worry. Admiral Harrison, General Morrison, and Dr. Patel had all urged her to mount a strong defense, to argue for humanity's right to act according to their conscience. But Sarah had a different plan. Honored counselors, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation matrix to every being in the chamber. I stand before you today not to defend humanity's actions, but to apologize for them. A shocked silence fell over the assembly. Even the ambient hum of life support systems seemed to quiet. This was not what anyone had expected. I apologize, Sarah continued, for the fact that when children were being sold into slavery on Kepler Station, my species couldn't wait for the proper committees to form and the appropriate studies to be conducted. We acted immediately to free them. Confusion rippled through the council. Several species began rapid communications with their home worlds, uncertain how to process this unexpected approach. I apologize for the chaos we caused when we ignored the careful evacuation schedule for Alteria Prime, and instead saved every single life on that dying world in time. I'm sorry that our actions made the neat, orderly plans of the Council look slow and inadequate by comparison. The ethereals began pulsing more rapidly, their translucent forms shimmering with what their observers recognized as deep thought. The Zephyrians' energy patterns shifted to colors associated with uncertainty. I apologize for the fact that when the Vorthon plague was killing thousands while the Council debated the acceptable risk levels for intervention, we sent our people to die alongside the infected rather than let them suffer alone. I'm sorry that we couldn't stand by and watch preventable death when we had the power to act. Sarah's voice grew stronger, more confident, as she continued her unexpected defense. Most of all, honored counselors, I apologize for forcing you to confront an uncomfortable truth about yourselves. For 3,000 years, this council has maintained peace through careful deliberation, measured responses, and risk aversion. You've created a galaxy where procedures matter more than people, where protocol supersedes compassion. The chamber erupted in angry chatter. Several delegates rose from their seats, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of outrage. But Sarah pressed on, undaunted. You call us reckless, and you're right. We are reckless with our own safety when others need help. You call us disruptive, and you're absolutely correct. We disrupt the comfortable distance that allows good people to do nothing while evil flourishes. You call us dangerous, and again, you speak the truth. We are dangerous to every system that prioritizes order over justice. High Counselor Vexitar's crystal form began to resonate with harmonics that indicated deep disturbance. Never in 3 millennia had anyone addressed the Council in such terms. I stand before you today to apologize for showing you what you've become, Sarah said, her voice now carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. A collection of advanced civilizations so concerned with maintaining stability that you've forgotten why civilization exists in the first place. You've become so afraid of making mistakes that you've made the biggest mistake of all. You've stopped trying to make things better. The chamber fell into an eerie quiet as Sarah's words hung in the air like an accusation that couldn't be dismissed. High Counselor Vexitar's crystalline form flickered with uncertain light patterns, something that hadn't happened in over 1,000 years of his service. Around the amphitheater, delegates shifted uncomfortably in their specialized seating arrangements. Counselor Threska's scales rippled through colors that indicated confusion and anger. Ambassador Chen, she hissed, your words border on contempt for this august body. You speak of compassion, but what of the chaos your species has introduced? What of the refugees your reckless evacuation scattered across 17 star systems without proper documentation? What of the economic disruption caused by your interference in established trade routes? Sarah nodded respectfully. You're absolutely right, Counselor. We have caused chaos. Let me tell you about some of that chaos. The human ambassador gestured, and her aide activated a holographic projector that had been cleared for use during the hearing. Images began to appear in the center of the chamber, but these weren't the sterile governmental reports the Council was accustomed to reviewing. "This is Zarakan," Sarah said, indicating a young Altarian whose 4 arms were wrapped around what appeared to be a human child. She was 7 years old when our chaotic evacuation pulled her from her dying homeworld. Today, she's studying xenobiology at the University of New Geneva, specializing in helping other refugee species adapt to new environments. The chaos we caused gave her a future. The image shifted to show dozens of similar scenes. Altarians working alongside humans, contributing to society, building new lives. The council members watched in silence as their carefully maintained emotional distance began to crack. "This is Dr. Velthar," Sarah continued, showing a spider-like being in a medical facility. "He was dying of the Vorthan plague when our reckless medical teams violated the quarantine. Today, he's working in that same facility, using the treatment protocols our doctors developed to save others. The chaos we caused gave him not just his life back, but a purpose." Counselor Mordeth, a massive insectoid being whose species communicated through pheromone emissions, released chemicals that indicated deep contemplation. His translator converted his chemical language into audible words. "But surely, Ambassador, you cannot defend every human action. What of the incident at the Nexus station, where human merchants violated trade agreements to provide supplies to the embargoed Kellen system?" Sarah's expression grew more serious. "That's exactly what I'm here to apologize for. I'm sorry that when the Kellen people were starving because your embargo was being used as a political weapon, our merchants couldn't just follow orders and let children die. I'm sorry that their moral bankruptcy was on full display when they chose profit over principles." The accusation sent shockwaves through the assembly. The embargo against the Kellen system had been a carefully crafted political tool, designed to pressure their government into compliance with council directives. That it resulted in civilian suffering was considered an unfortunate but necessary side effect. "I'm sorry," Sarah continued, "that when faced with a choice between following your laws and following their conscience, humans consistently choose their conscience. I apologize for the fact that we simply cannot accept that suffering is acceptable if it serves a greater political purpose." Elder Quinthara, one of the ancient energy beings who rarely spoke in council sessions, suddenly materialized more solidly, her form crackling with power. "Young Ambassador," she said, her voice carrying the weight of eons, "you speak as though this council lacks compassion. We have maintained peace across the galaxy for 3 millennia. We have prevented wars that could have destroyed entire sectors. Are you suggesting that our methods are wrong?" Sarah turned to face the ancient being, showing no fear despite the tremendous power radiating from Quinthara's form. "Elder, I would never presume to judge your methods. You've accomplished something truly remarkable. A lasting peace across species that have fundamental differences in biology, psychology, and values. What I'm apologizing for is showing you the cost of that peace." The human ambassador gestured again, and new images appeared. These showed the darker side of the galaxy that the Council rarely discussed openly: slave markets operating in legal gray areas, refugee camps where people waited decades for proper processing, worlds suffering from preventable disasters, while aid was tied up in bureaucracy. "This is the price of your perfect system," Sarah said quietly. "These are the people who fall through the cracks of your orderly civilization. The ones who die quietly while forms are being filed and committees are being formed. The ones whose suffering is deemed acceptable to maintain the greater good." The images continued to cycle through scenes that many council members had seen in reports, but never truly contemplated. Children working in mines on worlds where labor laws were still under review. Entire populations dying from diseases that had known cures, but which couldn't be administered without proper authorization. Ships full of refugees burning in space while their asylum applications worked through the proper channels. "I apologize," Sarah said, her voice growing stronger, "for the fact that when humans see these injustices, We can't simply file a report and move on. I'm sorry that we lack the sophisticated ability to rationalize away the suffering of individuals for the sake of systemic stability. Counselor Threska's scales were now cycling rapidly through colors that indicated extreme agitation. You paint us as monsters, Ambassador. But what you call inaction, we call wisdom. What you call heartlessness, we call necessary restraint. Your species has been part of this galaxy for barely 50 years. We have maintained civilization for millennia. Perhaps there are things you simply don't understand yet. You're absolutely right, Sarah agreed, surprising everyone once again. We don't understand how you can watch a child starve while debating the proper procedure for food distribution. We don't understand how you can let people die of preventable diseases while studying the long-term economic impact of providing treatment. We don't understand how you can maintain your emotional detachment when faced with preventable suffering. She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. And we're sorry for that lack of understanding, because it apparently disqualifies us from being civilized members of your galactic community. We're sorry that when we see someone in need, our first instinct is to help, not to check whether helping them fits within the appropriate guidelines. High Counselor Vextar's form was now pulsing with light patterns that observers had never seen before. Ambassador Chen, he said slowly, are you suggesting that the Council should abandon the principles that have maintained galactic peace for 3,000 years? Not at all, High Counselor, Sarah replied. I'm suggesting that perhaps those principles need to be balanced with something else, something that humans bring to the table, even if it makes us troublesome and unpredictable. The chamber had grown so quiet that the subtle hum of alien life support systems was audible. Every being present was hanging on Sarah's words, even those who had entered the session convinced of humanity's guilt. I'm apologizing for bringing chaos to your order, Sarah said, but I'm also asking you to consider what that chaos has accomplished. In 50 years of human membership in this council, we've helped prevent 3 humanitarian crises from becoming genocides. We've developed new medical treatments that have saved millions of lives across 17 species. We've pioneered rescue techniques that have made your peacekeeping forces more effective. The human ambassador gestured to the gallery where her delegation sat. Admiral Harrison there broke 7 council directives when she led the rescue mission at the Proxima colony. But because of her actions, the colony survived the asteroid impact with minimal casualties. General Morrison violated 4 neutrality agreements when he intervened in the Rigel Civil War. But his intervention ended a conflict that had already killed millions and prevented it from spreading to 3 neighboring systems. Sarah's voice grew more passionate as she continued. Dr. Patel, sitting there, defied quarantine protocols during the Andromeda outbreak. Her actions not only contained the plague, but led to the development of vaccines that now protect 15 different species from similar outbreaks. She turned back to face the full assembly. Every human crime you've listed today has one thing in common. They all resulted in lives being saved, suffering being prevented, or injustices being corrected. We're not perfect, and we make mistakes, but we make them while trying to help people. The energy in the chamber was shifting perceptibly. Several delegates who had entered the session calling for humanity's expulsion were now exchanging uncertain glances with their advisors. The images Sarah had shown, the stories she had told, were forcing them to confront uncomfortable questions about their own civilization's priorities. Elder Quinthera's ancient energy form pulsed with contemplation as she processed everything she had heard. Around her, the council chamber buzzed with quiet conversations in dozens of alien languages. What had begun as a simple disciplinary hearing had transformed into something none of them had anticipated, a mirror held up to their own civilization. Ambassador Chen, the elder said finally, her voice carrying across the vast chamber, you have given this council much to consider, but surely you must acknowledge that good intentions alone cannot justify the disruption your species has caused. Structure exists for a reason. Order prevents chaos that could destroy everything we've built. Sarah nodded respectfully. You're absolutely correct, Elder. Order is essential. But I would like to share one final story, if the Council will permit it. High Counselor Vextar's crystalline form flickered with curiosity. Despite the controversy of Sarah's approach, her words had captivated every being in the chamber. Speak, Ambassador. 3 months ago, Sarah began, there was an incident that never made it into your official reports. A small transport ship carrying Zephyrian pilgrims suffered a catastrophic engine failure near the Void Nebula. By the time Council rescue ships could be dispatched through proper channels, the ship would have drifted beyond the point of no return. The Zephyrian delegates flickered with increased interest, their energy patterns brightening. This was the first they had heard of such an incident involving their people. The nearest vessel was a human cargo freighter called the Second Chance, Sarah continued. Captain Maria Santos received the distress call and immediately altered course to help. She didn't check with Earth Command. She didn't verify whether she had authorization to enter Zephyrian space. She didn't calculate the economic cost of delaying her cargo delivery. She just acted. Sarah gestured, and new images appeared in the chamber's center. A battered cargo ship racing through space toward a failing transport vessel. When Captain Santos reached the pilgrimage ship, she discovered that its life support was failing faster than expected. To save all the Zephyrians aboard, she would need to transfer her own ship's power reserves, leaving her vessel dangerously vulnerable. A proper rescue would have involved evacuating only essential personnel and leaving the others to await proper Council rescue ships. The assembled delegates watched as the holographic recreation showed the human captain making split-second decisions that violated multiple safety protocols. Instead, Captain Santos transferred full power to the Zephyrian ship and took her own vessel into emergency shutdown. For 16 hours, she and her crew sat in a powerless ship in one of the most dangerous regions of space, surviving on emergency life support while they waited for help to arrive. All so that every single Zephyrian pilgrim could be saved. The lead Zephyrian delegate suddenly flared with brilliant energy patterns that indicated extreme emotional response. Through his translator, his words carried across the chamber. The ship, Harmony of Light. It was carrying my own offspring to their first pilgrimage. We were told they were saved by miraculous intervention. We never knew. Sarah's expression softened. Captain Santos never filed a report about her actions. When questioned by her superiors about the cargo delay, she simply said she encountered unexpected engine trouble. The Zephyrian authorities never knew that a human had risked everything to save their people because Captain Santos felt it would be inappropriate to seek credit for doing what anyone should do. The revelation sent waves of discussion through the assembly. Here was a human action that fit no pattern they had expected. Not defiant, not public, not disruptive to Council authority. Simply a person helping other people because it was the right thing to do. This is what I'm truly apologizing for, Sarah said, her voice carrying clearly through the sudden quiet. I'm sorry that humans cannot see a person in need and think first about procedures, regulations, or political consequences. I'm sorry that when faced with suffering, we act first and deal with bureaucracy later. I'm sorry that we have forced this council to confront the difference between being legally right and being morally right. Counselor Mordeth released pheromones indicating deep confusion. But, Ambassador, if your species acts purely on emotion and impulse, how can we trust you to maintain galactic stability? How can we rely on partners who ignore established agreements whenever their conscience dictates otherwise? That's exactly the right question, Counselor, Sarah replied. And the answer is that you can't trust us to maintain stability if stability means allowing preventable suffering. You can't rely on us to follow agreements that conflict with our fundamental values. What you can trust is that humans will always try to do what we believe is right, even when it's difficult, dangerous, or diplomatically inconvenient. She paused, looking around the chamber at the diverse collection of species that had somehow found a way to coexist for 3 millennia. But perhaps that's exactly what this galaxy needs right now. Perhaps 3,000 years of perfect stability has created its own problems. Perhaps the galaxy needs a species that's willing to be uncomfortable, to take risks, to disrupt the status quo when the status quo isn't serving the people it's supposed to protect. Elder Quinthara's form pulsed with what ancient beings of her species displayed when experiencing profound realization. You're suggesting that humanity serves as a conscience for the Council. I'm suggesting that humanity serves as a reminder of what the Council was originally supposed to be, Sarah corrected gently. You were formed to protect and serve the peoples of the galaxy. Somewhere along the way, you became focused on protecting and serving the system itself. There's nothing wrong with that. Systems need maintenance. But systems are supposed to serve people, not the other way around. High Counselor Vextar's crystal form was now displaying light patterns that indicated he was accessing deep memory files, reviewing the original charter of the Galactic Council from 3 millennia ago. The charter that had indeed focused on protecting and serving the peoples of the galaxy, before centuries of amendments and additions, had shifted the focus toward maintaining order and stability. You force an uncomfortable question upon us, Ambassador, Vexatar said slowly. If we expel humanity from the Council for repeatedly violating our directives, what message does that send to our own people? That we value compliance over compassion? That we prioritize procedure over results? But if we allow these violations to continue, Counselor Threska interjected, her scales displaying colors of deep concern, what becomes of our authority? What happens to the order we've spent millennia establishing? Sarah smiled for the first time during the hearing. Maybe, Counselor, the answer isn't to choose between order and compassion, but to find a way to have both. Maybe the galaxy needs a system that's stable enough to prevent wars, but flexible enough to help people when they need it most. She gestured to her delegation in the gallery. Admiral Harrison, General Morrison, Dr. Patel, Captain Santos, they're not rebels or troublemakers. They're people who believe that rules should serve justice, not replace it. They represent a species that's willing to risk everything to help others, even when those others are complete strangers from alien worlds. The chamber fell silent as delegates processed not just Sarah's words, but the fundamental challenge they represented to everything the Council had become. Finally, Elder Quinthara spoke, her ancient voice carrying the weight of eons of experience. Ambassador Chen, your apology has been illuminating. You apologize for showing us what we've lost, for forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves, for being the conscience we didn't know we needed. And in doing so, High Counselor Vextar added, his crystal form now displaying patterns of resolution, you have reminded us why this council was formed in the first place, not to maintain order for its own sake, but to protect and serve the peoples of the galaxy. The vote, when it came, was unlike anything in council history. Instead of voting to expel humanity for their violations, the Council voted to establish new emergency protocols that would allow for rapid humanitarian intervention. Instead of censuring human actions, they voted to study human methods for possible integration into Council procedures. Most importantly, they voted to amend the Council Charter for the first time in over 1,000 years, adding a simple but revolutionary clause. When following procedure conflicts with preventing unnecessary suffering, Council members are authorized to act in the interest of sentient life, with review and accountability to follow. As the session ended and delegates began to file out, many approached Sarah to express their gratitude, not for her apology, but for her courage in forcing them to remember what they had originally set out to accomplish. The Zephyrian delegate was among the last to approach. Ambassador Chen, he said, I would like Captain Santos to know that the Harmony of Light Pilgrims have established a shrine in her honor. They call her the human who chose light over darkness." Sarah smiled. "I'll tell her, but you should know that she'll probably be embarrassed by the attention. She still insists she was just doing what anyone would do." "Perhaps," the Zephyrian replied. "That is exactly why the galaxy needs humans, because what you consider normal, the rest of us had forgotten, was possible." As Sarah left the council chamber, she reflected on the strange turn the hearing had taken. She had come to apologize for humanity's disruptive nature, but in doing so, she had helped an entire galactic civilization rediscover its own moral center. Sometimes, she thought, the best apology isn't asking for forgiveness. It's helping others understand why forgiveness might not be necessary after all.